It's a funny thing. I remember when I entered high school, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this later, but when I entered high school, I was transplanted to Baton Rouge from Lake Charles, Louisiana. So I originally grew up in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I feel like there's a lot of that going to go on today, right? Right. So I got transplanted as a freshman. Right before my freshman year. So thank goodness for band, because I walked into an instant family, an instant community, and it really just helped me to make that transition. But it was interesting because I also went to another student activity outside of high school, and I remember the lady who was in charge of this, who was leading the whole program, approached me. I didn't know anybody except outside of the band program, right? And she approached me, and it was the most amazing thing. She was, so I was, 13 at the time? 13 or 14 years old, and she was a beautiful, beautiful lady, so I mean, right there she had me, right? So when she comes up to me, she goes, "Oh my goodness." She goes, "I am so glad you're here. You should be glad you're here, because you're very fortunate to be here, because you're going to have a great time." And I'm thinking, that's kind of arrogant, right? She's sitting here and saying, "You're lucky to be here." But later I found out that I was actually lucky to be here. I had no idea what I was in store for. So I quickly started to understand that what she was trying to say is, and it didn't come across the way that it should is that there's some things going to happen throughout this course and out this time that are really just going to help you to exceed and excel in your band career, in your life, in everything that you do. And I didn't know that at the time. But in hindsight, I look back and she was absolutely right. I was fortunate to be here, and she felt fortunate to be here. And my job today is to help you guys feel like this was a great investment of your time. And here's the beautiful thing. I get really excited when I get to come speak to student leaders in the marching band space. For the past 10 years, what I've done since 2006, it's been 11 years now, close, I've been speaking to high school students. I do high school assemblies. I've been doing college talks, doing those keynote addresses, and I talk to corporate people and to educators. But my favorite group of people to speak to are student leaders in the marching band space. And I'm going to tell you my story, the backstory about that in a little bit, and I think you'll understand why that is. But it's always the best group to speak to, and here's why. Because the focus and the energy and the dedication and the commitment is far superior to anybody else that I speak to. So what I like to do when I start these presentations, since you don't know me yet, is to have a little fun right from the beginning, because the energy from student leaders is always the best. But I want to test it out right now. So if you will humor me, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Repeat after me. Ready? Say, "I can do anything.
I can do anything.
But I can't do everything.
But I can't do everything.
I can make a difference.
I can make a difference.
But I have to make a decision.
But I have to make a decision.
My voice is unique.
My voice is unique.
My influence is strong.
My influence is strong.
And in this band,
I
do belong.
I do belong.
But it doesn't just happen.
But it doesn't just happen.
All right, so it's good, it's tight, it's together, but I want to take the energy up to another level. So I want you to turn to somebody next to you and say, "Neighbor."
Neighbor.
Say, "Oh, neighbor."
Oh, neighbor.
I'm pretty sure
I'm pretty sure.
some challenges are going to come our way.
Challenges are going to come our way.
But here's one thing.
Here's one thing.
You can count on
You can count on
every single day.
every single day.
That no matter where you go,
No matter where you go.
and no matter what you do,
No matter what you do.
I will always be right here,
Be right here.
looking better than you.
Looking back there.
All right, good. Give me a hand. Woo! Yeah, that little piece, that always gets you. That always gets you. And obviously today we're going to talk about leadership, and we're going to talk a lot of things. We're going to talk about team building. We're going to talk about community. We're going to talk about family. We're going to talk about making you a stronger leader. And my hope today is that you walk away from here completely transformed, fired up, excited, but more importantly than that, with the tools and insights you need to go back to your band programs and to be the influence and the inspiration that inspires superior performance in your band. So let me tell you a little bit about my story, just so you know where I'm coming from and what I'm doing here standing with you. Because we don't know each other yet. And I want to tell you a little bit so you understand where I came from. See, this whole band experience started for me at 11 years old. How many of you started playing your instrument at 11 years old or younger? Okay, cool. How many of you started later, like 12, 13, 14? Okay, good. Now, I find that there's always three different type of people in band. There's the people who wanted to be in band, and they were looking forward to being in band and that band experience. Where are those people in the room? Awesome. Wow. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right. Now I want you to know the whole band vibe is totally different here in Texas than it is over in Louisiana, right? You guys, you have extraordinary programs around here. Some of us have good programs in Louisiana, but not all of us do. So that culture's not here. So there's a lot of people here who wanted to be in band and look forward to it. But there's a second type of people. A second type of people who get in band, who there's two different ways this can happen. Not just in band, but in life. You can be volunteered, or you can be voluntold. How many of you were voluntold for band? You didn't really want to come, but you got signed up anyway. That was my wife. That was my wife. Her name's Renee. She played the flute, and they moved her on a trombone. Fortunately, she had a great experience, but she was voluntold that she was going to be in band. She showed up one day at home. Her mom says, I signed you up for band. She says, I'm not going. She says, yes, you will. How many of you had that experience? All right, cool. Well, got one right there. Now, there's a third type of person that's in band. The person who didn't necessarily, or the people who wanted to be in band, the people who got voluntold in band, and the people who didn't necessarily want to be in band, but for some reason ended up here. Where are those people? Okay, so there's a dip. But it seems like the bulk of the people here actually wanted to be in band. Congratulations, that's awesome. See, I didn't necessarily want to be in band. In Louisiana, I don't know if it's the same way around here, but in Louisiana, especially in junior high school, signing up for band is like killing your social contract. How many of you feel me on that? The people over here know what I'm talking about, right? All right, well, fortunate if it's not that way here, but it's like basically killing your social track. Do I want a social life or do I want to be in band? There's not really, you're not going to really measure that. But here's what happened. Here's what compelled me to want to be in band, even though I was looking at that dilemma. See, about a year, maybe 2 years before I actually picked up the saxophone. That's what I played, saxophone. Where are my saxophone players in here? Oh, yeah. There's way too many saxophone players in here.
That's the best way to have it.
I know, right? Yeah. It really is. We make it fun, don't we?
Yes.
All right, cool. Absolutely. So here's the thing. So I started play. I wanted to play the saxophone, and here's why. See, I grew up way back in the in the 1980s. Yes, I did. I'm getting old. I turn actually 45 this month. Everybody give me a hand. Yeah, I'm waiting for the AARP to reach out to me. I knew that would get them. They're like, what? Okay. That's the old people organization. I know I'm not that old. Anyway, so I didn't necessarily want to be in band. It was that social contract thing, but I couldn't help but be in band because here's what happened. 2 years later, 2 years before when I was growing up in the 1980s, it seems like every band had saxophone players. Now this was back way before the internet and way before you had YouTube. So I couldn't just go onto YouTube, type in whatever I wanted to see, and watch the band. I had to wait a full week. And every week on Friday night and on Saturday night, some of you might remember this, they had a TV show that played videos. Y'all remember the name of that?
Friday Night Videos?
Friday Night Videos, but there's also one called Night Tracks. Y'all remember that one? All right, so I had to wait and I had to sit there. But every Friday night I would park myself in front of the TV if I wasn't out at the skating rink, because that's what we did for social fun. Don't judge me. I know, too late. All right. By the way, how many of you seen my videos on YouTube? Wow, that hurts. Wow. Well, we're going to change that, okay, when I leave here. But anyway, so I'm watching these videos, and they have these saxophone players, and I am just into this whole scene. They look so cool. They look like they're having so much fun. It just really resonated with me. And like I said, I'm sitting here watching this every Friday night, unless I'm at the skating rink, and I wasn't at the skating rink most of the time because I was the kind of person, my grades, I was the person in the lower part of the class that made the upper part possible, you know what I'm saying? Right? Right. Yeah, some of you know it way too well, right? But I was in that part, right? So I stayed grounded or punished. I can remember one year in my middle school year, I think it was the 7th grade, I was punished. We went on 6-week periods. There was only one 6-week period that I wasn't punished in the whole year because of my grades. So I was in front of that TV a lot watching those videos. You see what I'm saying? And so I started to identify with these saxophone players. And I just started resonating. Well, finally, when I got into junior high school, in 6th grade, they had an assembly in the local the local music store. The guy who owned the music store came and did an assembly in our cafeteria. And so when he got up there, he had all of these instruments lined up. He had the flute right? And I was like, I don't really want to play the flute. Great instrument, love it, but no. Pull the clarinet, and and he pulled the trumpet. I'm like, well, that's kind of cool, but no. He pulled the trombone. I'm like, no. Where are my trombone players? They hate. Oh, they hate me right now. They hate me right now. I'm joking. I love trombone. But when he got to the saxophone, all of a sudden, have you ever been in a class or have you been with your parents or around your siblings or your friends, and all of a sudden somebody says something or something happens and you just kind of fade out and you're just kind of thinking to yourself and everything kind of goes dark and blurry. It's like that light shining and you're just like, oh my gosh, have you ever been there? Right? Yeah. So that's what happened to me. So I'm listening, but I'm not really hearing anything and I'm not really paying attention to the people around me. But I'm like, wait a minute. There's my opportunity. So as soon as the assembly ended and everybody dispersed and I was being cool, I was a sixth grader. So when they all left and I'm sitting back, and the minute they all cleared the room, I went over to him and I said, can I play the saxophone? He says, well, no, let's try it out. He picked up the saxophone, he put it in my hand. I held the horn, I put my mouth to the mouthpiece and made the most glorious sound you've ever heard in your life, right? And from that point, I was hooked. He says, here's what you need to do. You need to go back home. You need to tell your mom. You need to bring her to my music store. We need to see if it's a good fit for you and if she's willing to do this and to buy the saxophone for us. I said, no problem. I'll be there by 5 o'clock. Got my mom, dragged her down to the music store, picked up the horn, got her to agree, and the rest is history. And I get back into that band program, right? And here's what happened. So I'm sixth grade. I'm learning how to play the horn. But here's the thing. It wasn't even about playing the horn for me at first. Remember, because I was watching those videos and how cool those people were. So for the first 3 months of playing the horn, right? I'm not even really playing it. I mean, I'm making sounds on it. I'm trying to play it. But I'm sitting there and I'm in the mirror. I get my horn and I go in the mirror because I want to look cool, right? So I'm sitting in the horn. I'm going. Just making these crazy faces, and my parents were kind of worried about me, right? So I was So I was making these crazy faces. In fact, here's what happened. It never left me. I always wanted to look cool playing the saxophone. So fast forward into my freshman year when I'd moved over into that band, right? So I was getting to be about a freshman, and I was in the band, and I just moved into this new place, and I was scrawny. I was like a little bitty thing, right? And so I was kind of weakling. So I said, I need to start working out. Right, so I started. My mom bought me a membership to a gym, and I started going and exercising and working out. Because I didn't want to get beat up. I wanted to be able to defend myself if I needed to. I took karate too, right? And so I'd been working out, and one day my parents felt like, hey, you're old enough, we can leave you at the house, right? So I had my saxophone, I was practicing, but then I went and did a little workout. I came back, I got in the shower, and I was toweling off and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm standing in front of the mirror. And I'm looking at the progress that my muscles had made, right? So I'm sitting in the mirror and I'm going, and then I went, and I look over and there's my mom. She said, dude, you need to stop that. You look like a coat hanger. Yeah, right. So it was about looking good rather than playing the saxophone. And it got even better because I got away from looking good or trying to look good to actually learn how to play the saxophone. As hard as I tried, I was never first chair because there were some people sitting in front. I think I was like fourth, maybe fifth, and I just toggled between those two because here's what was going on. See, I had been going to school with the people that were in band. I'd been going with them since I'd been in school with them since I was a kindergartner, right? How many of you are looking at people here in this room that you've been going to school with for a very long time? Okay, all the way back to kindergarten. Anybody? Okay, you see what I'm saying, right? And so here's what happened. I had 3 people sitting on this side of me that I couldn't, when we do chair tests and challenges, I couldn't move past, right? And it was very frustrating. But here's what made it even more frustrating. The person sitting right next to me right here, her name was Tony. And she was blonde head, she was cute, and back in kindergarten, she was my first girlfriend. Right? So she was better than me, and she's an ex-girlfriend. That's not a good combination, you know what I'm saying? Because she looked down at me, right? She really did. And so I would play these chair tests and try to get past her, and Tony she was better than me. And sometimes she'd move this way, sometimes she'd move that way, but I never really seemed to get past Tony. Now sitting on the other side of Tony was this blonde-headed girl, and she was, she'd never want to date me. She was like way out of my league, right? And so, but she was really good on the saxophone, but I always looked at her and I was like, maybe she'll go out with me one day. I was hopeful, you know what I'm saying? Right? And so, but she would beat me and she was better than me. And then there was this guy, his name was Jerry. I didn't want to date Jerry. I just say I didn't want to date. But he was absolutely amazing. So I very soon settled into the fact that I needed to do this for my own reasons. And again, it come back to that love of playing the saxophone. Never wanted to be in band, just love playing the saxophone. And that love drove me to continue. Saxophone players. If you've never had this experience, I invite you to do this. So whenever I was in junior high school, and I started out on alto saxophone, right? So it was manageable. And then they put me in tenor saxophone, because I was a little bitty dude, right? So it looked like a Barry, but it was tenor, right? And then the dude gave me a Barry, right? And I was schlepping these things on the bus.
Yeah, same.
Talk about kill your social contract. You sound like right? And banging people, sitting in the back. So if you haven't had that experience, do that. But so I trudged through that only because I wanted to play the saxophone. It was a burning desire. And here's what I want to say about that. And we're going to look at this a little bit more later. I showed up and continue to show up no matter how hard, no matter how difficult, no matter how embarrassing, no matter how challenging it got to be in band, because I loved the saxophone. And I bet you that every single person in this room keeps showing up for a different reason or the same reason. So here today, I'm going to invite you to ask yourself, what is the main reason that keeps you coming back to this experience? Because it drives you and it compels you. And when challenges happen in band and things get tough, hey, how are you? That's the thing that's going to compel you. And that's what compelled me. So fast forwarded, I'm leaving the 8th grade, and my parents pulled me aside one day, sit me down and say, Dwayne, we got some good news. I said, great, let's hear it. See, my dad had lost his job 6 months prior, and they said, your dad got a new job. I said, that's fantastic. We can eat again. I'm just waiting to see if y'all are awake. No, it's good. So I said, that's good. I said, so what's going to happen? She says, well, we're moving to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is 2.5 hours away. I said, have fun. They said, no, you're coming with us. Now, back up here. Here's why that was so tragic. Not only was I going to be going into the 9th grade knowing absolutely nobody in this high school, which was devastating enough, but something had transpired and happened along the way up into 8th grade. See, I didn't tell you this, but from 6th grade to 7th grade, I'd start to put on a lot of weight. And I started to get pimples and zits all over my face. And if that wasn't embarrassing enough, I had another ex-girlfriend. Are you seeing a trend with me here in the girls? Right? So I had another ex-girlfriend from way back. Her name was Marcy. And Marcy took to giving me a nickname that she liked to publicly announce every time she saw me. So think about this for a second. I'd put on all this weight. I had all these pimples on my face. Can anybody guess what Marcy was calling me? What my nickname was that Marcy gave me?
That's
It's like,
a fat guy with pimples.
these are good. I've never thought about these. Keep them coming. Keep them going. We're going to insult the speaker. No, here it is. You ready? I mean, it would have been nice if she called me pizza face. It'd have been nice if she called me fat guy with zits. That would have been nice. That's not what Marcy called me. Now you got to understand, Marcy, and I'm not picking on Marcy, I'm just going to let you know the reality of the situation, because it's kind of ironic that she was calling me names. See, she was a pretty girl, but she was a redhead. She had all these curls in her hair, and she had freckles like you would not even believe, right? So I find it kind of weird that she was picking on me, but here's the name that she called me. Y'all ready? All right, I'll tell you that in a second, but let me tell you something. All right, so watch this. She called me, because I'm fat, right? And I got these pimples on my face, right? And my self-esteem is in the toilet. She called me Zit-opotamus. Now that's bad. That's bad, because you know what most student leaders and band students do whenever I say that? They go, "Aw." Yeah. And then we do it on the count of 3. Everybody do it with me. 1, 2, 3. Aww. See, but y'all didn't do that. Y'all was like, y'all are brutal. Y'all are brutal. So I gained all this weight, and I was, but around end of 7th grade, beginning of 8th grade, and I had no friends because my self-esteem was in the toilet. Man, I can remember one night when I'm in 7th grade. I remember one night crying myself in the bed, crying myself to sleep in bed because I had no friends. I'm lying. No, I'm not. And no, I'm not. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. I kid you not. And that was the low point. That was the low point. Thank God we didn't have social media back then, because it would have just made it worse, right? Because hippopotamus, and she would have, Snapchat with the zits and okay. But anyway, so it started to transform. About the end of 7th grade, beginning of 8th grade, I started to shed the weight. OxyClean started working. Proactive solution. Yeah, right. That's probably, right. So it started working. It started working, and I started to lose weight. And all of a sudden, my self-esteem started to come. I started getting friends. But here's the big kicker right here. I met a girl. Her name was Karen. Let me tell you about Karen. Karen was my height, which was a good thing because not many people were, right? I'm a short little dude, people up here, right? So Karen was my height, but she was beautiful. She had blonde hair. She had blue eyes. She wore makeup. She smelled good. She was fine. And her daddy was rich. And my parents really liked that. Oh, you need to stay with her. But to say that, it wasn't that good, because what they do, if you remember the story, now they were telling me, Dwayne, we're moving 2.5 hours to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I am devastated. Because I'm going to be leaving Karen, and I'm going to go into this place where I don't know anybody. My social life is dead again. But they transplanted me. I ended up in a marching band program, and all of this that I'm telling you right now, these little bitty things that led me to where I am, put me right here in front of you today. And here's the rest of the story. So I show up to this marching band experience. We didn't have big marching bands in Lake Charles. There was a couple, Barb High School and a couple other things. And I was actually looking forward to going to Barb High School, but I got transplanted. So I end up in this little band, 60 people in the entire band, on a good day, right? And it fluctuated between, 55 and 60, right? Depending on the attitude of people. So I show up not knowing what to expect, and I don't know if it's like here in Baytown. I don't know if it's the same thing. I heard the rain gets pretty significant as we're experiencing today. But in Louisiana, in South Louisiana, in Baton Rouge, Terra High School is where I went.
Really?
Yes.
Broadmoor.
Rivals. Very cool, very cool. Back me up on this. In the dead of August, when we're doing our band camp, if it's rained, in some parts we have what we call gumbo mud.
Yes.
Thick gumbo mud, right? Like really thick, so whenever you're marching it, and the reason they call it gumbo mud is because when you're marching, you go when you're marching through it. And so the mosquitoes are biting you, and the bugs are, and it's sweaty, and it's hot and stuff like that. So I get in there, and it just rained the weekend before, and on Monday we started band camp. So I get out there not knowing what to expect. They put a tenor saxophone in my hand to march with. They couldn't even give me an alto. They put a tenor saxophone in my hand, right? So I get out on the field, and I'm marching, I'm going through drill and stuff like that, and I'm thinking, there's no way I'm doing this, but I keep remembering the saxophone and why I want to play it, right? Okay, I'll stick it out another day. Well, about the third day, I was about to quit. And I could tell that the leadership, the drum major, the assistant drum major, and some of them were starting to look at me and and I'm like, oh, that's it, I'm out, I'm done. But at the end of practice, the assistant drum major, the drum major, and the clarinet section leader came up to me after rehearsal and they said, Dwayne, we just want you to know that we're glad you're here. You're doing a great job. I know this is different, and we admire the hard work and dedication that you're putting into this. So we just wanted to let you know that we're glad you're part of this family. Keep coming back. This is going to get better, and you're going to be awesome. Is there anything you need from us? Changed the game for me. Kept me in band. Again, a very small, tiny thread that keeps us in. Here's why I tell you that story. Because every single one of you in here, whether you realize it or not, has the ability to impact the lives of every single person in your band program, from the newest freshman to the senior who returns who's not sure if they're going to stay. And you never know who they are. So take a time to step out of your comfort zone, walk over to somebody, especially if they're out on the fringes and they don't really hang out with everybody. Take time to reach out. Bring them in. And we're going to talk about how to do that today. But it's very important, very powerful. And if they hadn't done that, I'd have been out. And thank goodness that they did that, because here's what happened next. I went through the year basically hiding in the band, right? There's 60 people, how was I going to hide, right? But I was sitting right about here. The band director would be up here, and so we had the band right here, and the drummers were in the back, right? So I'd hide. I'd try not to play too loud or play too soft and hide behind the clarinet play, you know what I'm saying? I'd hide, right? Well, about the first part of concert season, finally we had some chair tests come up, and for the first time since I'd been in this band program, my band director looked at me and he said, Mr. Huff, And I went, ah, right? And I looked up, he says, I want you to play this line. I'm like, oh gosh, here we go, right? So I took a deep breath, I closed my eyes, and I played it. When I got finished, I looked up, and he says, great job. That was good. Keep it up. And I was so proud because I felt like part of the thing here. But what you understand about this band director was that he was old school military style. This was his last year. He was going to retire. Here's how he managed the band. Think about this for a second. We had these old uniforms that they'd been wearing since 1970. They were old school. I have to show you a picture. They had spats that we had to polish and that we had to whiten. It was old school, and he was like, when we were in rehearsal, you did not mess up, right? And here's what would happen during rehearsal. If the drummers were cutting up and messing up, which they always did. Where are my drummers in here? Where are my percussionists? Okay, yeah, right, back me up on that, right? Always having fun, always. Well, so they were always cutting up, and here's what this dude would do. He would, if they got noisy, he'd stop rehearsal, and he'd just pause, and he'd look around. And he wouldn't take his eyes off of him. He'd walk over to the board or to his stand, and he'd pick up an eraser. And he'd look, and he'd go. And the drummers would be like, there's a split. And so I was basically sitting right here, and so when he would throw those erasers, they were coming pretty close to my head, right? You could just hear the wind, right? So what you got to understand is that when he called my name and said, you need to play this, I was scared to death. And for him to say that was good, keep it up, kind of brought me into that fold. I finally felt like part of the band. But that wasn't what happened. What happened next was that we get towards the end of the year. I'm trying to decide if I'm coming back. He pulls me aside. He says, Mr. Huff, can we have a conversation? I'm like, oh gosh, here we go, right? So I think I'm in trouble, right? He brings me in the office. He closes the door. He says, listen, I've been talking to your peers, to the drum major, to the assistant drum major, to the section leaders, and some of the other people in the band. And we've been having a conversation. We think you would be a good leader. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Can you go away this summer to a leadership camp and learn how to do that so you can come back and be the student conductor, which basically is a person who is training to be the assistant drum major and then the drum major. And I said, okay, well, what's involved? He says, well, you'll go through a series of days in a leadership camp and you'll learn some great stuff. I said, great, where am I going? He says, well, I've been doing a little research. Now, this was back in the day before the internet and Google, so he really had to do some homework, right? And so he said, well, the closest one that I found is back in your hometown of Lake Charles, Louisiana, and it's a week long. Now, pause, because when he said back in your hometown, I don't care what he said after that. He could have been Charlie Brown's teacher, because I wasn't hearing it, right? And so he said that, and I'm like, oh, it's that moment again when somebody says something and everything kind of blurs out and darkens out. Because when he said back in your hometown, what was I thinking?
Karen.
You remembered her name. That's awesome, right? Yeah, I was thinking Karen. I'm like, leadership, whatever. If this doesn't work out, I'll go hug. I almost said kiss. I'll go hug Karen. So I go hang out with Karen, right? And those, again, the reason I tell you these things is because there's these little thin threads that keep us coming back to everything in life. Somebody once said that on tiny hinges swing big doors. And it simply means that the little things in life, when we're almost about to quit and we're thinking we don't want to come back, there's those little things. Maybe it's a friendship. Maybe it's a word from someone. Maybe it's an experience. Maybe it's a trip. Maybe it's a pizza party that you guys, whatever it is, it keeps you coming back. Pay attention to that. Keep you coming back, because here's what happened next. I show up into this, it's McNeese State University, by the way, just right down the road. Right? And there you go. Right, and so I show up at McNeese State University, and the band room is about this big. I don't know if you guys have ever been out to McNeese, but the band room is about this big. Right? Yeah, cool. So, so I show up there, and there's nothing here except a bunch of tables set up around, right? And so, but I'm feeling pretty confident, because I just got out of 9th grade, so I'm no longer a freshman, right? And so I'm walking kind of tall, So I bust up in this place. I got to show you. I bust up in this place like this. Now you notice my hand's behind me. You know what's in my hand? My mother. I was scared to death. I did not know what was going to happen. And it's a good thing she was with me too, because here's what happened next. I go to this table to register, and all of a sudden this crazy guy jumps out, and he goes, "Hi, my name is Johnny. We're going to have a great time. We're so glad you're here. I'm so fired up. Go ahead and sign up." I'm like, Mom. Trying to hide. Now here's the thing. So this guy scares me. I'm not sure I want to stay in this place. I'm about to bail, right? This guy turns out to be one of the most influential people in my leadership journey. Because he was the drum major at McNeese. His name was Johnny Johnson. They called him the Westlake Wonder Boy, right? And the reason was, yeah, that's kind of weird. But the reason is because when this dude got on the podium, it was dynamic. You couldn't take your eyes off of him, and it inspired you just to watch him conduct. He was full of energy. He was full of life, and he just made the music come alive, and it inspired me. And so right then, I caught a new vision of what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. I wanted to be that drum major. And I wanted to ultimately come back and be the drum major from McNeese, though I didn't know if that would ever happen, right? So I go through this camp, and he takes us through drill. I thought he was going to kill us. It was hot outside. He would take us out for hours at a time in block, and we're marching, and we got our arms up, and we're marching, and he's talking stuff about, you got to carry your own weather. Don't let them see you sweat. Don't sweat, and while you're sweating, I'm like, I'm dying. Just stop it, you know? So we're going through this whole thing, and finally, about day 2, they pull us into this big auditorium. It's nice, it's air conditioned, it's like this, right? And so I'm so excited because we get to cool off. It's kind of like whenever you're marching outside and the breeze starts happening, you got the breeze break, right? And you're like, oh, God, there it is. And so it was kind of like that. So we sit down not knowing what to expect, and it was about this many students, just like we have right here, all there to be student leaders or drum majors, right? So we all sit down not knowing what to expect. We're starting to bond, and then the main event, the guy who was there to teach us leadership shows up. And this guy is just absolutely on fire. He's amazing. He's funny. He's having a great time. And he's teaching him some great stuff. His name is Dr. Tim Lautzenheiser. How many of you have heard of Dr. Tim? How many of you have had the opportunity to see Dr. Tim? All right. If you haven't had the opportunity to see Dr. Tim, I tell everybody, please, please, please see Dr. Tim before you leave this experience, right? Because he was absolutely amazing. And what he did was he took 50 complete strangers and took them from I don't know who you are to by the end of the week, we were all boohoo crying because we had made best friends in that experience. And he challenged what we thought. And he opened our mind. You know, I grew up in a positive family, and my family was always telling me positive things. Here's one of them. You can probably finish this. If you've heard this before, finish this for me. You can do anything in life you want to do as long as you, set your mind to it, right? How many of you have heard that before? How many believe that's true? Okay, cool. So he told us that, but then he also took it to another level, some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And all of a sudden, my vision in my mind for what I could do with my life completely transformed. And I walked away from that experience going back to my band, and I was ready to go. Fast forward a year, I come back the very next year to the same camp, but things had changed. Now I'm going into the 11th grade. Some of you might experience right now or starting to experience what I was experiencing. When I went home and I went through the band year, all of a sudden I was older, and my parents started pushing on me, Dwayne, you need to figure out what you're going to do when you graduate from high school. How many of you have had that conversation with your parents? How many of you really getting that conversation hard from your parents? You need to figure this out. You ain't got much time left, right? So my mama actually gave me 2 options. She was very generous lady. Tell you about my mama, she's a short, Cajun Italian woman. So she was generous, right? She gave me 2 options. She said, Dwayne, you can go to college or you can die. I mean, that was the options, right? And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to college. But here's what I want y'all to know. I was scared of my mom. I still am, right? So I want you to know, because of that conversation right there, I was ambitious. So when I went to college, I focused, man, and I gave it everything I had. I went to college, and I was so scared of my mom, and I was so ambitious. I crammed 4 years of college into 6. Don't do that. Don't do that. Get out there as fast as you can. That's what happens to music majors, though, right? How many of you got music degrees? I mean, music performance degrees. Okay, cool. Does anybody know what you? Okay, so music educators, right? And they teach band and stuff like. Does anybody know what you do with a degree in music education, music performance? Move back home with mom and dad. That's correct, yes. But that's what I did. I got a degree in music performance in saxophone, right? But I went to school and I got my music degree. And I say that because whenever we go to school in music, it takes a longer time sometimes if we're not really focused and we're playing all these ensembles, right? And that's what happened to me. Crammed 4 years of college into 6. So I'm at this camp, and my parents are starting to tell me, Dwayne, you need to figure out what you want to do. So I go back to this camp with Dr. Tim, probably the same message, probably the same thing he said the year before, the same experience, but all of a sudden, again, Dr. Tim's talking this time, and all of a sudden this background is playing in my head of what my parents said. Dwayne, you got to get a job. Dwayne, you got to find what you can do. Dwayne, you got to... And all of a sudden it dawned on me, I'm like, wait a minute. This dude Dr. Tim sitting in front of me right here. This dude is getting paid to run his mouth and draw pictures on a board. I'm pretty sure I can do that, you know what I'm saying? And I was fired up, dude. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know how to do that, but that dude's getting paid to run his mouth and draw pictures. I can do that. I get in trouble in class for that. How many of you get in trouble for running your mouth in class, right? So that's what happened to me. And all of a sudden, here's why I tell you this, because a dream was born. Here's what I'm here to tell you. Your marching band experience, this leadership experience that you're embarking upon or returning to, has the potential to open doors in your mind, in your heart, and in your life. Lean into it. Push into it. So I didn't know how to do that, so I did what most people do. I took that dream, I put it on the shelf, I took the safe route, and I went to school for a 4-year degree. Which I'm glad I did. But it took me a long time. Here's what I'm going to say to you. Whatever your dreams are, whatever you want to accomplish, whatever's in your heart, start pursuing it right now. We live in a time that we've never lived in before, where technology puts us in an even playing field. Whatever your ambition is, whatever your heart is, whatever you put your mind to and work hard for, you can do it. Once I finally put the flag in the ground and said, this is what I'm doing, I've been doing this right here with Come Back to Band students for 5 years. I've been a professional speaker. That's all I've done for the last 10 years. But it all started sitting right where you are with Dr. Tim. All of a sudden, a dream was born in my heart. I had a vision. There's an old saying that says, without a vision, the people perish. Somebody told me the other day a different way of looking at it. They said, without a picture, confusion sets in. As leaders, one of the most important things you can do with your band director and your band is pull together in a common vision. Get with your band director, understand the vision, and then help others to see the picture. Because when people see the picture and the goal you're shooting for, your job as leaders becomes so much easier because everybody's on the same page. But if they don't understand what the vision is, they don't understand what the goal is, all of a sudden you're trying to lead people who don't see the same thing you see. And that's when confusion and chaos and difficulty sets in. So that transformed my life. And I ended up taking this leadership thing. Here's what happened. I drum majored, I was a student conductor, and then I finally became assistant drum major my 11th grade year. I became drum major my senior year. After that, there's a Louisiana All-Star Marching Band. I don't know if they still do it, but it was a 500-piece band that came together for a week. 500 people! 500 students brought together. I ended up being one of the drum majors there. Don't be impressed. There was 5 of us. We were just there to look good. We didn't really do anything, right? But I got to drum major that, and then immediately upon graduation, I got a scholarship to Northeast, which is now ULM, to be the 3rd freshman drum major in the history of the school. Give me a hand. Don't give me a hand, it was a complete disaster. And there's a very good reason, because freshmen should not be drum majors. How many of you feel me on that? They're not there yet. They're not there yet. No, there's exceptions to every rule. And honestly, it was a good experience. It was a good experience because Johnny, back in the, what I told you about leadership camp, Johnny Johnson, he inspired me. So I became really good on the podium, but I was really horrible at humbling myself. I used to hate that word, humble yourself, but here's what I've since learned. Somebody told me one day, say, Dwayne, as a leader, you need to humble yourself. I said, I don't like that. They said, well, let's think about this for a second. Let's think about what humble means. Humble doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. It means thinking of yourself less. And all of a sudden, I became okay with that. But back then, I wasn't. So I drum majored ULM. The summer before that happened, right after I got finished doing the Louisiana All-Star Marching Band, I went on tour with a drum and bugle corps out of Hammond, Louisiana. It was only a 60-person corps as a drum major of that. And then I ended up drum majoring at ULM and then leaving and becoming one of the drum majors at McNeese. So now I had become full circle, right? And I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you that 90%, maybe 80% of the stuff that I did as a leader was horrible. I didn't humble myself. I was arrogant, I was boastful, I was prideful, and I didn't consider other people. My job as a leader was to serve the band, and all I wanted to do was serve myself. But I still had this burning desire in my heart to come back to you guys at some point and share some of the things with you that would make your life as leaders better, so that you could inspire and motivate, and that when you leave high school, you could take these lessons, carry them into the rest of your life, and have extraordinary lives. Because here's what I'm going to tell you. The things we're going to talk about today, you're going to be amazed and blown away. That whenever you go through high school, and you graduate, and you go into the workforce, or you go to college, and then you finally get into the workforce, what you're going to find out is the stuff we're going to talk about today, most people do not know. And it's unfortunate. because they don't have time to teach us this in school. You're very fortunate to be here because I'm going to share things with you that some of the greatest minds in leadership have passed along to me. It's not about me. It's not about me being great. It's about me imparting stuff onto you that's going to serve you. And you're going to be blown away when you get out into the real world and see that not many people understand what you understand. But then it becomes your responsibility to lead and to demonstrate and to set that example for other people. And here's the beautiful thing. It starts right now. Where you're at right now with your band programs, this is a laboratory. And it's your opportunity to experiment and to develop yourself as leaders. But true leaders don't just develop themselves as leaders, they develop the leaders around them. And the true measure of a leader and the way you measure yourself is how many people are you developing and growing around you. See, because one day you're going to graduate. Hopefully, right? One day you're going to graduate and you're going to leave a legacy to your band program. And I want you to keep in the front of your mind what legacy you're going to leave for them. Right? So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. But I wanted to share that with you because I wanted you to understand what brought me here today with you guys. This isn't just something I do. This was a dream that was planted in my heart when I was 14 and 15 years old. And I'm fortunate and blessed enough to come and share it with you. So the rest of the day, we're going to talk about what leadership is, why it's important, and what you can do to be an effective leader. And in order to do that, we're basically going to talk about three things throughout the day. The first thing we're going to talk about is connection. Everybody say connection. Connection. The next thing we're going to talk about is collaboration. Everybody say collaboration. Collaboration. And finally, the thing that brings it all together, we're going to talk about communication. Everybody say communication. Communication. Cool. So in order to do that, let's start this party by understanding who each other are so that we can see the differences in the subtleties. Now, one of the reasons at the beginning I did that chant with you guys and brought you through that is because one of the first things I learned, and the most important thing we can learn as leaders, is that success and effectiveness for your band program is found outside of your comfort zone. So let me ask you this. Whenever we were going through that little chant, how many of you felt a little bit uncomfortable having to do that? Okay, good. That's just the beginning. We're about to pull you a little bit further out of the comfort zone. First thing is get outside of the comfort zone. Now, the way we're going to do that, how many of you brought something to write with? How many of you brought something to write on? How many do not have something to write on? Can I get a couple of pieces of paper for these guys, like some blank paper? Or if you guys can pull something out of your notebook or share. Okay, I see them sharing. Does anybody need anything to write with? Is that coffee for me? Richard, is that coffee for me? Yes. Oh man, thank you so much. There you go. Pencil.
I need to get them back though. Paper? Anybody need paper? Just take it and pass it around. Take it and pass it around. There's plenty. I need a paper. I only have 4. Okay, never mind. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh,
they gave me the pencil.
Pencil. All right.
I was a joke.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. In front of you, place your paper sideways like this. And then draw a line straight down the center. Yeah, for those of you who own carpet, that might be a little difficult unless you have something to kind of write on. Okay, cool. He's got some books that you can write on if you need. All right. Yes, ma'am. I need a pencil? Cool. All right, so if right now you don't have a full-size sheet of paper, please get one from somebody, borrow it. Because a small piece isn't going to suffice. Normally when I do this, we do it with flip chart paper, so that's how big we normally get it, but we're going to do it with, who needed the pencil? All right, so if you don't have a regular size piece of paper, at least notebook size, please get one.
Thank you.
All right, so here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this activity. On this side of your paper, I want you, in the form of pictures and symbols, no words, no numbers, no letters, pictures and symbols, I want you to draw things that represent what you love most about band. Now hold on, that's not the end of the activity. So on this side, things that you love about band, things that make, things that keep you coming back, things that you love about band, your favorite parts of it. So draw pictures and symbols that communicate that. On this side, tell us about you. Outside of band, who are you? What do you like? What do you want? What do you hope? What do you expect? You see what I'm saying? Things about you. Now the only rules about that is if you don't want us to know about it, don't put it on your paper. Okay? But on this side, draw things that you love about band, love most about band. On this side, draw things about you. Outside of band, who are you? What do you like? What do you need? What do you want? What do you expect? That whole picture. Okay? So you've got 5 minutes to do both sides. Okay? Any questions? All right, cool.
What if we need and want band on both sides?
Right, no, so I hear you, and it can bleed a little bit, but I want to know about you on this side. And whatever you want us to know. If you don't want us to know, don't put it down. Again, if you do not want us to know it about you, do not put it on the paper. Okay? Hello. How are you? Put on a little working music. How about that? On this side, things you love about band. On this side, things about you outside of band. you got about another 2.5 minutes.
Hey, when were you at McNeese? What years?
91 through 96, so I think I drum majored in 93.
Well, I came in '96.
Nice.
McNeese. You came in after that, though. 02, yeah. 02.
Yeah.
And our drum instructor, who just went to go take his daughter to daughter to a doctor's appointment, he was a graduate at McNeese as well.
Nice.
Yeah. I was there from '96 to 2000.
Okay. Yeah.
Was Dr. Royce Tevis there when you were there?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was my one ensemble conductor.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so
yep.
cool.
Yeah, and Lemke was my.
Marching band?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was mine too.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Small world, eh?
Tara and McNeese. That's crazy.
Tara and McNeese, and I went to. So I'm in Lake Charles. I grew up in Lake Charles. Went to FK White.
FK White. Was Daryl Carrier your band director?
Yeah. No.
Wow. Who was it?
Carrier at FK White? No. Walmsley.
Walmsley.
Tripp's dad was my.
Tripp?
Yeah.
Tripp Walmsley?
No, Tripp Walmsley's dad was my band director.
Yeah.
But I did a lot of student lessons for Daryl Carrier.
Okay. Yeah.
So when I was in college, my
wife's from Lake Charles, Louisiana, so that's like my second home.
nice.
That's
I love it. I love
small
going back.
world,
I
man.
love going back, man. Decent start. You think? Yeah, it's a decent start, energy wise and everything.
Great job.
Okay.
Thanks for being here, man.
No, man. Absolutely. This is my passion, dude. It's my passion.
You know, he's a little hard, so he's probably not on. Like,
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
we're trying to take over, man.
Yeah, right. All right, guys, you got about another minute.
I pointed it out.
Looking down at my
That's actually a pretty good trombone.
All right, guys, 30 seconds. All right, ready or not? Now listen, I see some of you kind of freaking out about these pictures and stuff like that, so I just want to set your mind at ease. Don't worry, because all we're going to do with these pictures is put your names on them and hang them right out in the hall so everybody can. Joking. Right, so we're gonna do a fun activity with this. I think you're really going to enjoy it because it's really going to open your mind to a couple of things. But before we do it, basically what's going to happen is in a moment I'm going to set a timer for 7 minutes, and then we're going to have a social gathering. Because one of the things that we do as leaders is we step outside of our comfort zone to reach out to other people. We leave what's safe and comfortable, and we reach out to get to know other people. It's our responsibility as leaders, especially with new freshmen coming in who might not feel comfortable. We've got to learn how to make them comfortable without, jumping out of the bushes and saying, boo, we don't freak them out and run them off, right? So we're going to do this. So, okay. Anyway, one of those thoughts. But we're going to do this in a very specific way that's really going to make it beneficial, helpful, and comfortable for you, no matter what situation you're in, right? So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You can see my pictures up here on the board. Now let's pretend for a moment you and I are talking, and all that you have to go on is what you see here. You don't know me. We just met, and you have to get to know me a little bit better, straight out of the blue. How are you, and I want you to raise your hand if you want to give it a try, how are you going to find out about me based on what you see up here?
Ask questions.
Great. She says ask questions, so give it a try.
I'm going to ask questions. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
The third picture, down. Never mind. The one on the right, most, the circle, what is that representing about you?
Okay.
Above the palm tree.
Okay, is this the one you're talking about?
Yes.
So you're asking, what does this represent about me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So her question is, the picture over here, what does that represent about you, right? Great, so what it represents about me is one of my passions and one of my love is food. And I have a hierarchy of the food that I love. My 3 favorite things, one of them is on the plate right there. My 3 favorite foods are, in this order, steak, barbecue, and Mexican food. That's my hierarchy. And depending on where I am, it changes. So when I'm in Texas, that changes up a little bit, right? But those are my favorites. So this is a very bad job of this, but this is supposed to be a filet steak. Right? And whatever the side is, doesn't really matter. It's really about the steak. Okay, good. So give her a hand. She asked a great question. Thank you. Good job. Good job. All right, I see somebody else wanting to volunteer. Here we go.
What are those circles at the top on
Okay. These? Okay, ask the question again. Everybody listen. Ask the question again.
What does that represent?
What do those circles represent? So that is my family. I'm the one with the big head. Right? No, okay, so it's my family. So it's me, my wife Renee, my oldest is Joshua. Joshua just got his tonsils out. Whew! It's been rough. So Joshua's 11. Noah is about to turn 8. And we have Amelie, she's 3. Oh, don't do that. She runs the house, man. Man, for the time she wakes up, she starts barking orders at you. She's bossy, man. She's bossy. No, she has leadership skills. That's what it is. But no. So that's my family, and when I'm not on the road, I love spending time with them, playing with the kids, just having family time. And we like to travel. We like to have fun. We like to eat, things like that. Bless you. All right, cool. So great question. Give her a hand. Somebody else. What do you want to know about me? How do you learn? Yes.
The picture on the left, the saxophone.
Yes. Okay, good. Somebody else. Somebody else. Yes.
The little guy, is that like, do you draw? Do you paint?
Yes.
What is the picture on the bottom left? Like you're just like talking to somebody?
Oh yes, that's one of my favorite things about band was the relationships and the communication. I love being around people. I love opening up and talking. I love listening. No, I don't. I love talking. But I love the relationships, and that was one of my favorite parts about band. Somebody else. Give her a hand, by the way. Great question.
Like the palm trees and the bird and like the water, and you like to vacation.
Yes. Somebody else.
Where do you like to vacation?
Oh, wow, yeah. My favorite place is the beach. I don't care, just put me on the beach. Except Galveston. I didn't know. I'm joking. I'm joking. No, even Galveston. I love the beach. There's just something, and here's the crazy thing. My wife always says this. The thing is like we'll go to like Pensacola Beach is closest to us, and we love being there. My wife loves to go down on the beach, sit there, enjoy the sun, and all that kind of stuff. And I will sit up in the room on the balcony with a cup of coffee in the morning and just look at the water. And I love that. My wife's like, why don't you come down the beach? Sand. And I'll go down to the beach like early in the morning before it gets really hot, or late in the afternoon when the sun goes down. And I dig that, right? I love being by the water. So, you know, my wife go to the beach for different reasons, but it's cool, right? So good. Give her a hand. Good question. One more.
For the music note on the left side, is it that you love playing music or you love the progress of being in band, how you play the music? Like how in the beginning it's like kind of bad and then in the end it's really good.
I think it's the playing. Pretty decent. Give her a hand. All right, now let's think about this for a second as leaders. What just happened? What did you notice as we went through this? How many people took a stab at it? What, about 6, 7 maybe? How many got clapped for? All of them?
Oh, no, a few of them, no.
A few of them. What was the difference?
The depth of the question.
Say again?
The depth of the question.
The depth of the question, because who learned the most about me?
People who ask more intricate questions.
Yeah, the people who didn't make assumptions, the people who asked more questions, but more specifically, questions that handed the ball of conversation over to me. Questions like what? Questions like why? Questions like how? Questions like explain. Variations on that, right? So for those of you who I didn't clap for, I didn't get people to clap for you, I wasn't dissing you, I wasn't trying to make you feel bad, but I really wanted you to see the power and impact of your questions. Because if you ask people questions that give them the ball, it makes them comfortable. Somebody told me one time, they said, Dwayne, you can make more friends in 2 hours being genuinely interested in them than you can in 2 years trying to get them interested in you. How many of you like to be around people who all they do is talk about themselves? How many of you like that? You run the other way, don't you? But how many of you like being around people who really want to know you and really want to connect with you and really want to understand who you are? Okay? So we can do this intentionally. Right? And some of you did it very well. Naturally, you asked the right question. Some of you had the purest intention in the question you asked. But let me ask you a question. If I look at the picture and I say, is that a saxophone? What's the only way that I can answer?
Yes.
Or no? It is, but you see what I'm saying? Or if you say, or like, what was your question? How'd you ask? Was it you?
Do you, wait, me?
Yes.
Do you like playing music or did you like the progression of music?
Good question. But what are my only options? This or that. She set me up to where I could only really say one or the other. Still a better question than a yes or no question, right? Because I get to talk a little bit more, but the ones who really opened up the questions allowed me to talk more. So here's how we do it. And for those of you who brought something to write with, write this down. This will serve you today. It will serve you through marching band. It will serve you for the rest of your life. Write this down, TED. If I'm trying to get to know somebody and I'm asking them a question, what does that T stand for? If I'm asking a question, how do I start a question with something that starts with T?
Tell me about this.
Say again?
Tell me about it.
Yes! Yes, yes, yes. Give her a hand. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about the picture. Tell me about your experience in band. Tell me about your journey in band. Tell me what got you in band, right? Because it's very, very difficult. And in a moment we're going to see, for some people it's not really difficult, but it's very, very difficult to give you a one-word answer if you say, tell me about. Because you've just opened it up and allowed me to tell you more, okay? Now, I'm going to give you several options here. and not all of them might feel comfortable to you. So you pick the one that works best for you, okay? I'm not saying you have to do all of these, but they're at your disposal depending on the situation. But if you do these, the magic you will see in the conversations you have is just going to blow your mind, okay? And we're gonna practice it here in a little bit, right? So, E, if I'm asking a question, how might I start that one?
Explain.
What? Good stuff. Give them a hand. They said explain. No. Give them a hand. Give them a hand. All right. Finally, D. If I'm asking a question that starts with D, how do I do it? Describe. Very good. Give them a hand. Give them a hand. Very good. Hey, this brings up an interesting point that I wasn't planning on making, but here we go. So we're clapping, and it's fading, and then it picks up. But think about this for a second. Where are my people? Where are my people in jazz band? Okay. So let me ask you a question. When you're playing a jazz band concert, or maybe even in some of your rehearsals, when somebody plays a solo and they get finished playing the solo, what happens? People clap, right? It's a normal thing in the culture, right? Unless the solo is bad and everybody's like, no, they generally clap whether it's bad or not, right? But there's a culture of clapping and praising. Here's my question. How many of your band programs, consistently, is there a culture of whenever somebody does something good or takes a chance or steps out of their comfort zone or does something amazing, how many of you have right now a consistent culture of clapping for them or praising them? Okay, good for you. Here's what I'm here to tell you. If you're not consistently doing it, that can be created. If you're doing it already, congratulations, continue to do it, because if you, as leaders, don't do it, it's not going to happen. But don't just do it half-heartedly. Do it full out. Because when you do it, you lift up every person around you. But it has to come from you, the leaders, because it's not going to come from the freshmen. It's not going to come from the seniors who are already experiencing senioritis. It's not going to come, yeah, y'all feel me on that one, right? It's not going to come from the sophomores and juniors who are too uncomfortable to do it. It's got to come from you, right? So keep that going, and let's practice this throughout the day. So good job. Now, on top of this, here's some other ones for you. Write this down. Howie and the 4 W's. Howie and the 4 W's. All right. Howie and the 4 W's, ways to ask questions. So you got how, you got who, you got when, you got where, you got what. What did I leave out? Why. Why did I leave out why? If I come to you and I say, why are you doing that?
It's like
It could be accusatory, it could be a little confrontational, especially people who don't know you. Walk up to a freshman and say, why are you here? I'm leaving. You know, be careful how you ask those questions, but here's the magic, here's the beauty. If you ask, tell me about, explain, describe what, when, where, who, or how, it will tell you why. It will always tell you why, okay? So stay away from why, especially with people you don't know. Now, if you know somebody good and you have a good friend, it's okay to ask them why. I'm not saying you have to remove it from your vocabulary, but be very careful with it because it's a very pointed question that could offend. You see what I'm saying? And we want every chance we have as leaders to be able to connect, to collaborate, and to communicate, right? Cool. So, Howie and the 4 W's, what, when, where, who, will always tell you why. So here's what we're going to do. My invitation to you is to challenge yourself. As we do this activity and you're talking to the other people, when you see their picture on their piece of paper, the only conversations you have start with these. Challenge yourself to do that. And listen, here's the only goal of this activity. Listen and learn as much as you can about each individual that you speak to. As we go through this, I'm going to clap and say switch, which means I'm asking you to switch to somebody else, and we'll probably have about 5 of those switches in the course of the time that we're going to do this. So please switch quickly, and here's my challenge to you in the spirit of getting out of your comfort zone. I see red shirts. I see blue shirts. I see people who forgot to wear their band shirts. Okay, so watch. So no, I'm just picking. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Every time you switch, talk to somebody you don't know. Stretch yourself. Get out of your comfort zone. Okay. So in just a second here, we're going to stand up and we're going to have the social activity. We're going to do this for 7 minutes. Roughly therein. And so the only goal is to learn as much as you can about every person you talk to, which means start with these questions. Listen intently, right? So everybody stand up. Hold your piece of paper in front of you. Hold your piece of paper in front of you. And the social gathering begins now. Find somebody you don't know. Good job. Good job. So, I'm completely honest here. Just be very honest with me. How many of you felt a little uncomfortable doing that? Okay, good. Thanks for being honest. How many of you absolutely love that? All right. Starting to get a little bit of insight. All right, good. Cool. So here's what I want to know, and we're going to do this. The reason we're doing this activity is many-fold, but the first one we talked about is connection. Whenever we can connect with different people and step out of our comfort zone and do it intentionally, there's a lot that can come from that. How many of you challenged yourself to really use some of these words we talked about to start those conversations? So let me ask you this. Raise your hand if you want to answer. How many of you felt like using those words to open that conversation really worked out for you? All right. How many of you found it a little bit awkward to try to keep yourself to those phrases? It's unnatural at first, right? If you're not used to doing it, it's going to take a little practice, just like anything else, just like your instrument, right? But let's pull apart some of the things that came from those conversations that you had and see how good of listeners you guys really are, okay? So here's what I want to do. We're gonna start on this side over here. I want to keep the conversation strictly to what you may have learned about somebody related to their band experience. So I'm going to go one at a time, so raise your hand. But think about a conversation you had with somebody you talked to. What did you learn about what they like about band? Raise your hand if you want to answer. Yep.
They love to march.
The marching part. Okay, watch this. Watch this. So they love the marching part. By a show of hands, how many of you really enjoy the marching part of marching band? Now, don't just raise your hand because your band director's in here and they'll see it. Everybody's like, well, that's a trick question. Now, let me be honest with you for a second. Let me just be honest with you for a second. Let me just be honest with you. I'll lead it off here. Let me be honest with you. I hated marching. Why do you think I was drum major 6 times? No, I did not like it. I did not like it. Except there was one year we marched Phantom of the Opera at McNeese. And I freaking loved it because I was passionate. I've seen Phantom of the Opera 5 different times. Twice in New York, once in Vegas, once in New Orleans. I'm trying to remember the other place. Anyway, not in London. I didn't see that. But I didn't like marching. I'll just be honest with you. That was not one of my favorite things. So by a show of hands, just be honest with me. How many of you like marching? Look around at the people. Hold your hands up high. Look around the people who love marching. Okay? Cool. Now watch, guys. I want you to put your leadership hat on and think about this for a second. One of the most important things that you can do is contribute to the community, the family, and the team that your band is. And one of the best ways to do that is to do an activity like this. You can do this very same activity with your band, because what this is going to show you is, first of all, it gets them out of their comfort zone and forces them to talk to each other, which is, again, going to be painful for some of them. But you're going to set the example, right? So, but the other thing it's going to show you is it's going to show you what everybody comes to the table wanting, needing, and expecting in a very creative way, and it builds teams. So feel free to do this activity with your band. Let's take it to another one. Somebody else tell me, what did you learn about somebody that they like about band?
The relationships.
The relationships. How many of you like the relationships? Okay, if you're sitting to somebody who does not have their hand raised, move. They don't like people, so it's not good. All right, right. Here's the other thing, guys. And I'm teaching from a different place because you're leaders, so I'm going to kind of teach and pull back the curtain so you can see it, so you can use these things. What this is doing is that when I say, okay, how many of you like the marching? Everybody raise their hand, everybody looks around. How many of you like the relationships? Everybody raise their hand, everybody looks around. What it's showing you is that the people around you are just like you. We follow people, we trust people who we know, who we like, and we trust. Until we get people knowing, liking, and trusting each other in your band, there's a wall. And we can only be so effective together. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Somebody had their hand up. Yes?
The games.
The games. Very cool. By a show of hands, how many of you like the games? Woo! All right. Okay, somebody else help me out. Band, yes.
Bus trips.
Bus trips. How many like the bus trips? I know why you like the bus trips. Especially you band couples. All right, what you got? Competitions. How many of you like the competitions? Very cool. Show of hands, honest, how many of you do not like the competitions, the competitive aspect? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. All right. Next question. How many of you aren't going to raise your hand no matter what I ask? All right, Kate. So the competitions, right? Competitions. Good job. Yes.
Do you like playing the instruments?
Just it's about the instruments that you play. All right, good. Instruments. Cool. I missed your hand earlier. Hold on, guys.
Being a leader.
Okay, you enjoy the fact that you get to play this leadership role, being a leader. All right, if somebody's not raising their hand, you might need to rethink this whole thing, you know what I'm saying? All right, good, so the leadership aspect, good. Yes, ma'am?
The busy schedule.
The busy schedule, how many of you like the pace and the busyness of the schedule? Okay. I'll just be honest with you, not many people raise their hand for that one. If you see my, yes ma'am.
The fast music.
Say again.
Fast music.
Fast music? Okay, cool. Fast music, raise your hand.
Armenian dance.
One more. Yes, sir. Hold on. I'll get both of you. Water breaks and what were you going to say?
Hitting the band kids with flags.
Hitting the band kids with flags. All right. So would you say water? Yeah. Water breaks. Water breaks and hitting people with flags. I knew it. I knew y'all did that intentionally. Fortunately, in my band, the band that I came from, it actually, that first year I was there, I told you it was 60 people in the band. Well, we got a new band director who brought over some of the students from his school, and so the band, I think, grew to 120, so it doubled. But fortunately, we didn't have that many color guards, so there wasn't a lot of casualties and scars and bruises and stuff like that. But not that I don't like color guard. Color guard's a beautiful thing. We need them. They're wonderful, but I'm just glad just to get hit by
I like
flags.
dancing the instruments.
All right. All right, so watch this. Let's talk. Okay, let's go to the other side. Let's go to the other side of the paper here, because now this is talking about the people and who they are, what they like, what they need, what they want, what they expect, and their life outside of band. So raise your hand and tell me what you learned about somebody that is about them, the person. Yes, ma'am.
They like long road trips.
Long road trips. How many of you like long road trips? Raise your hand. Go. Let me ask you this. And again, long road trips outside of band trips, like just being on the road and taking long road trips. Or look around. Hold your hand up high. Look around. There's not a lot, but again, we're showing what you have in common. So you may see somebody across the room and go, oh my gosh, they're just like me. I didn't know that person. They're just like me, right? What you're trying to reinforce as leaders is the more they're just like me you can get in your band community, the tighter your team becomes every time you do it. And the tighter your team is, the more effective you can be and the easier your job is as leaders. Because if everybody's divided, if everybody's on the same page, if people feel like they don't know each other, it makes your life as a leader much more difficult. So it behooves you to do these kind of activities to bring everybody together. Okay? Something else about somebody that you learned. Yes?
Family is everything.
Family is everything. Raise your hand if that's you. Wow. Okay, now watch this. If family is everything, let's connect the dots here for a second. If in somebody's personal life, you find out that family is everything to them, what might be the possibilities that they come to band for?
To make their family proud.
Connection, to make their family proud, connection, relationship, a feeling of community. So if you know that about a person, know that they're a community person, a family person. They want to be part of a team. And that's a beautiful thing to have in your band program, because when you have people who want to be part of a team, it means that they want to support. They want to be in the background. They want to serve, and they want to give to the band. And look at them, because they might become your future leaders. As leaders, one of your jobs is to mentor the people who are coming after you. And that simply means to share your experience, your personal experience, the good things you've done and the bad things you've done that you wouldn't do again, to help them grow. Pass that torch, mentor them. And if you know that their family is really big to them, you might also know that community is a reason that they're here. Okay? So begin to connect those dots. Somebody else tell me. Go ahead.
We like a lot of the same bands.
Okay? Give me an example.
Panic at the Disco. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Hold on a second. Now watch. This is good. This is good. This is good. This is good. Watch this. Let's build on this. Let's build on this. So, okay. So watch. You said Panic at the Disco?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, not everybody, but look. You see your people. You see your people. Okay? Somebody else, give me an example of your favorite music. Somebody give me an example of your favorite music.
80s rock.
80s rock.
Yes.
Hair bands or? Okay. All right, somebody else give me an example of your favorite music.
The 1975.
The Weeknd. Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra. Yeah. The Weeknd.
Dean Martin.
Dean Martin. Are you in jazz band? All right. So my point being is that these are good conversations to have, because you do this, you see people who like what you like, think what you think, right? It's important to do that. All right. Off of the music subject, somebody else tell me something you learned about them. Yes.
We like playing video games.
Video games. How many video game people do we have in here? Cool. Animal lovers. How many animal lovers do I have in here? Hold on, guys. Respect each other. Listen up. Lifeguards?
Oh yeah.
That was my like lifeguards, like at the pool. Oh, the bay. Okay, cool. That was like my summer job whenever I was in college. We had in Baton Rouge we had Blue Bayou. Okay, your band director was Blue Bayou Water Park. So I did that, and I did so lifeguards. How many lifeguards do I have in here? What? All right, guys, hold on.
I love going outside.
Hold on, guys. Say again.
They love going outside.
How many of you like the outdoors, like going outside? Okay, look around. That's your people. That's your people. All right, so outdoors, like going outside. Somebody else give me another one.
Food.
Food. How many like food? watch this, guys. Watch this. I didn't know this. I'll tell you a story. One of the jobs, it was funny because I had a degree in music performance. This kind of gets funny, right? So I didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated. So I ended up in the sales profession. Didn't really want to go into it, but kind of fell into it. And for the first 6 years out of college, I really stumbled, and it was brutal. I went to like 9 jobs in the first 6 years. And back then, that was like really unstable. I mean, it still is, but it, you know. But I ended up landing in a sales job, which is a pharmaceutical sales job. So for 8 years, I sold pharmaceuticals. Legitimately, just all right. Just to make sure we're on the same page, right? So yeah, and I didn't know this because the first 2.5 years that I sold pharmaceuticals, I don't know if you know anything about that industry. It's a coveted industry. People want to be in it. It's a nice job. It was a great gig, right? But part of that industry is taking food into the doctor's offices to feed the nurses, the doctors, and staff and stuff like that. So food's a big part of it, right? Well, I started out with a company that didn't give me the money to be able to do that. So they taught me some incredible selling skills that really served me, but I didn't have a budget, so I couldn't do that. So I didn't understand the impact and the power of doing that. Then I got transferred over to this big company that had tons of money, and part of our job was to take lunch and then to bring doctors out to dinner and do programs and stuff like that. But for 2.5 years, I never relied on that. I relied on what they taught me to sell the pharmaceuticals, right? And so I get into this new job, and my boss gives me all this money to buy lunches and dinners and stuff like that, and I wouldn't use it. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't need it. Why would I waste money? You see what I'm saying? I was conservative like that. And I felt like I could do it without that, so my ego was kind of standing in the way. By the way, somebody told me one time, the one thing that keeps people from working together more than anything else is ego. Absorb that for a second. The one thing that keeps people from working together, whether it's you guys, whether it's me, whether it's adults, siblings, family, ego. Keep that in your mind, okay? Anyway, so my ego was getting in the way, and I wouldn't spend the money. And my boss was getting frustrated with me. And finally, she sat me down one day, Dwayne, and she said, Dwayne, I need you to go out and spend that money. I said, don't need it. She says, but I need you to spend that money because if you don't spend it, we lose it. I said, I don't need it. She says, she was getting frustrated with me, so she thought about it for a second. And she thought about me and who I was. And she says, okay, Dwayne, here's what I need you to do. I need you to go out and spend that money. And I need you to bring doctors food. And I need you to have this conversation with them. And here's why I need you to do it. She says, Dwayne, I need you to do this because to know Dwayne is to love Dwayne. And I went, yes, it is. I was a narcissist even back then. No, but the point being is that what she was trying to communicate to me was, when you sit down with somebody over pizza, over food, over any type of meal, there's something chemical and biological that happens when people share food together that bonds and connects them. So never underestimate the power of sharing food with people. It's powerful. So if you have a pizza party, or if you have sandwiches, or if you all go out to lunch or breakfast or dinner together, it's powerful for building relationships. So if there's people in your band, let's say you guys are doing band camp, and let's say you have a pizza break or a sandwich break, or you have a get together and you're having food. If there's people who are hanging out who are not really part of the group and they're just they're not there, invite them or go and sit down with them and share a meal with them. It will open up the doors. Never underestimate the power of connecting with people over food. I didn't know that until I was like 38 years old, right? So take that to heart, okay? Food's powerful. So how many of you like the food? How many like food? All right, somebody, just real quick, somebody share with me, what's your favorite dish, one at a time?
Lasagna.
Lasagna. Pizza. Spaghetti. Enchiladas. Quesadillas. Well, she's getting excited, but she won't say what it is. Donuts. Chicken dumplings. Cool. Huh? Burger. Tacos. Barbecue. Steak. Crawfish. Anything with mashed potatoes. Okay. Chicken. Now watch this. I just want you to pay attention to this, because when I said what's your favorite food, everybody was excited to jump in and tell me what their favorite food was. That's how big it is. That's how important it is. So make it a part of what you do. Okay, give me some other things you learned about other people, about them.
Their education means a lot to them.
Their education means a lot to them. Raise your hand if your education means a lot to you. Look around. Look around. All right, give me one more.
I'm in on swimmers.
Swimmers? How many of you like to swim? Okay. All right, this is the last thing we're going to do with this, and we'll take a short break here, but this is where it becomes really important. This is why I'm bringing it right here. Because this is all fun and good. What we did just now is we connected. We did a little bit of communication. Now we're collaborating together to understand what we learned. But here's where the magic comes in, and here's where I'm going to ask you to really think like a leader, a servant, an example, a person who sees things and is able to pull things together. This is important to your band, yes, to build team, family, and community, but it's also important for you to be able to see what people want, need, and expect from their band experience, what people want, need, and expect from their life, because it defines who they are. They self-identify. And if you can understand how people self-identify in their personal life, you can see where their strengths, their talents, and their desires lie in their band life. So I'm going to ask you, and you can talk to each other, in your group or the person next to you if you can't see it straight. But I want you to take a look at this list right here. I want you to take a look at this list right here of the personal things that you learned about people, and tell me, how can that serve and benefit their marching band experience? If you see that this is what they like over here, how can that translate or be reinforced here in marching band? Think about it for a second. If you have to, discuss it with the person next to you, but I want you to connect the dots for me. In other words, I see this over here, whatever it may be, and I see that this can come out in band and serve this way. Take a moment, think about that, and when you're ready, raise your hand. And you can talk to each other if you want to. Yes, ma'am. Hold on, we got one.
Education can benefit attendance.
Education can benefit attendance. Give us a little bit more about that.
Like passing classes. Well, if you fail, there'll be more holes in the field. But if you pass, like everyone will march.
So what you're saying is that they're driven and they're brought here by education, and they know that if they don't keep on top of that, it'll compromise the band experience. Okay, and for a lot of people that's real, and it goes the other way. A lot of people, myself included, kept showing up. I really didn't care about my education. I know that sounds bad, but it's true. But I loved band, and I knew that if I didn't embrace my education, that would be taken away from me. So for some people, that's real, whether it's this way or that way. So good job. Give her a hand. Thank you. All right. Somebody else. You see something over here? How does it contribute? Yes.
Like how people like the outdoors, that can motivate them to stay outside, love marching, stuff like that.
Yeah, so if they like the outdoors naturally, they can be... See, here's the thing. We may come into this leadership experience thinking, we have to do it all. We have to do all the heavy lifting. We have to do all the leveraging. And in many cases, that's the absolute truth. But when you identify people who naturally love the outdoors, you're going to see a natural motivation and energy come from those people that if you know it and you see it, you can leverage, because they can be your motivation to the rest of the people around them, so you don't have to do all the heavy lifting yourself. Begin to pay attention to the people around you. What are their strengths? What are their gifts? What are their talents? And how can you leverage that to inspire the people around them? We're going to talk about this a little bit deeper later, but one definition is this: leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Influence is adding value to the lives of people. Adding value to the lives of people is understanding what they already value and helping them get more of it. Leadership is really simple when you think about it that way. If you understand your people, what they need, want, and expect from their marching band experience because of their personal experience, and you give them more of that, they're naturally motivated to want to follow. You don't have to push. You don't have to coerce. You don't have to dictate. You can simply give. We'll talk more about that later, but good job. Give him a hand. Give him a hand. Yes, ma'am.
If you like, you really value your family, you're gonna value band because band is a family. It's your second family.
Yeah, so that family thing is going to translate and connect. And the people who have that value may lead the charge in pulling everybody together. So if you're not naturally a family or a community person, relationships are important but not that important, leverage that with the people they are. Give her a hand.
The long road trips, that could make someone, be excited for the bus trips. Like if they're a freshman, they might not like the bus, like the whole concept of it, so they can just...
But if they like long road trips, you can connect those dots and say, hey, look, it's just another long road trip. Oh, I didn't think about it that way, right?
With your friends,
Yeah, with friends. There you go. Give her a hand.
Liking the same music, and when you play music in like the buses or in the band hall in the mornings.
Yeah, so if they're a big music person, they may be your DJ or the person who is in charge of the tunes. Good job. Give her a hand. Hold on. Let me challenge you real quick. Well, let me hear a couple more. Go for it.
Knowing that they can do sports like everything they love while staying in band.
Okay, being able to split the two between sports and band, so they still get more of what they need, but they still get this activity, and they might even like the physical activity if you guys are marching a challenging show, right? Good, give her a hand.
Lifeguards, like they're like leaders, and so if they're leaders, they like leadership in band.
Yeah, so they like leadership in band, and they're probably also looking out for people, right? So they have that natural instinct to want to protect and look out for people. Give her a hand. One more. One more. Yes, sir.
I know this is gonna sound like goofy, but like people that play like games, like video games at home, might have that competitive bone in their like body. So like they push themselves to get better after activities and competitions and such.
Yeah, man. And there's an old saying that says a rising tide raises all ships. And so if they're competitive, they're going to inspire people to take their game up to the next level, right? Good job. All right, cool. So watch this. All I'm saying here is do this activity with your band if you have the time to do that, because number one, it connects people together. It gets them talking to each other, but don't leave out this part because it becomes very awkward if you don't teach them this part, because they're just walking around going, is that a saxophone? Yeah. Is that a beach? Yeah. I mean, nobody's talking to each other, you know what I'm saying? So get them to do that, but then debrief it like this and then get them to connect the dots, because you're trying to show them that there are people in this band who are just like you, and people work with people and follow people that they know, that they like, and they trust, and this will help you to facilitate. How many of you like this activity? How many of you felt like you got some benefit from understanding more about each other? Cool. So give yourselves a hand. You did a good job.